Welcome to my channel. What if the English you are searching for is not hiding in another book, another course, or another vocabulary list, but inside your own mind? Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that English words begin appearing before you translate them. You see a window and think, the window is open. You pick up your phone and think, I need to charge it. Someone asks you a question, and instead of freezing while your mind searches for a translation, an answer arrives naturally. That change may sound impossible, but it begins with something remarkably simple: teaching your brain to use English during ordinary thoughts. When I first started learning English, I believed speaking meant memorizing more words. I collected vocabulary, studied grammar, and listened to lessons, yet when someone spoke to me, my confidence disappeared. I would think in my first language, translate the idea, search for English words, check the grammar, and finally speak. By then, the moment had already passed. I thought fluent people had a special ability that I did not have. Then came the first turning point. I stopped trying to make every thought impressive and started making it simple. I looked around my room and silently named what I saw: chair, door, book, phone. Then I created tiny sentences. The book is on the table. My phone is charging. The door is closed. These sentences were easy, but they were doing something important. They were building a direct connection between my experience and English. The second turning point came when I carried this habit into my daily routine. While brushing my teeth, I thought, I am brushing my teeth. While making breakfast, I thought, I am hungry. While walking outside, I thought, the street is busy. I suddenly realized that I did not need a special classroom. My life itself could become my classroom. The third turning point arrived when I stopped chasing difficult vocabulary. I had believed complicated words would make me sound intelligent, but they often made me silent. So I chose language I could actually control. Instead of searching for a perfect word, I used a simple one. I am tired. I am happy. I need help. Simple English gave me speed, and speed gave me confidence. The fourth turning point came when I began asking myself questions. What am I doing? Where am I going? What do I need? Then I answered in English. At first, my answers were short, sometimes only 3 words, but I was training my brain to respond instead of translate. The fifth turning point was even more powerful. I stopped being afraid of mistakes. Inside my mind, nobody could judge me. If a sentence sounded wrong, I could change it. If I forgot a word, I could try another. My private practice became a safe place where failure was allowed. The sixth turning point came when I connected words with pictures and experiences. Instead of translating apple into another language, I imagined its color, shape, smell, and taste. Rain became the sound against a window. Beach became sand beneath my feet. English started connecting directly to life. The seventh turning point happened when I began repeating useful sentences I heard in videos and conversations. I would silently repeat a phrase, notice its rhythm, and imagine using it myself. I was no longer collecting isolated vocabulary. I was collecting patterns that real communication needed. The eighth turning point came when I discovered that mental practice could prepare me for real conversations. Before speaking to someone, I could rehearse a greeting, question, or answer in my mind. How are you? What do you do? Could you help me? The words felt familiar before they ever reached my mouth. The ninth turning point arrived when I stopped waiting for confidence. I had imagined confidence would come first, followed by speaking. I discovered the opposite was true. Every small attempt created a little confidence. Every sentence I practiced became evidence that I was improving. The 10th turning point was consistency. I did not need hours of study. I needed repeated contact with English. 5 minutes while walking mattered. A few thoughts before sleep mattered. Small practice, repeated often, slowly changed the way my brain responded. Then something unexpected happened. English thoughts began appearing without an invitation. I would notice an object and know its English name immediately. I would describe an action without translating first. It was quiet, almost invisible, but it was real. A new road was forming inside my mind, and every small English thought was another step along it. But the journey was only beginning, because the next challenge would test whether this new habit could survive real conversations, forgotten words, nervous moments, and the fear of speaking when there was no time to prepare. The 11th turning point came when I learned what to do when a word disappeared from my mind. Before that, forgetting one word could destroy an entire sentence. I would stop, become frustrated, and return to my first language. Then I changed the rule. If I could not remember a word, I would explain the idea with words I already knew. If umbrella disappeared, I could think, it is something I use when it rains. If I forgot delicious, I could say, the food tastes very good. Suddenly, a missing word was no longer a wall. It was simply a small obstacle I could walk around. This taught me one of the most valuable lessons in communication. You do not need every word to express an idea. You need the courage to keep moving. The 12th turning point came when I started turning individual thoughts into tiny stories. Instead of thinking, I am drinking tea, I continued, I am drinking tea because I am tired. After this, I will finish my work. Then, I will take a short break. One sentence became another, and another followed. My brain was learning how to connect ideas naturally. I realized that real conversations were not made from separate vocabulary words, they were made from moving thoughts. So I began describing my entire day this way. When I woke up, I told myself what was happening. When I ate, I described the food. When I traveled, I described the road and people around me. At night, I remembered what happened and told the story again in English. The 13th turning point arrived when I started creating imaginary conversations. I would ask myself, how was your day? Then I would imagine another person answering, it was busy. I would continue, why was it busy? Then I would answer, because I had a lot of work. Sometimes I played both sides of the conversation. It felt strange at first, but it trained me to react quickly. I discovered that speaking was not only about knowing answers, it was about being ready for the next question. This mental game revealed weaknesses too. Sometimes I knew exactly what I wanted to say in my native language, but could not express it in English. Instead of becoming angry, I wrote the missing idea down later and searched for a simpler way to say it. Then I practiced that sentence until it felt familiar. Each difficulty became another lesson. The 14th turning point came when I connected English to my emotions. Before this, most of my practice sounded like a textbook. The table is brown, the weather is sunny, the car is fast. These sentences were useful, but they did not feel personal. So I began thinking about what I genuinely felt. I am nervous about tomorrow. I am proud of myself. I am disappointed, but I will try again. I am excited because something good happened today. These sentences mattered more because they belonged to my real life. I discovered that emotions gave words stronger memories. When a sentence describes something you truly feel, your brain has a reason to remember it. The 15th turning point began when I started preparing for conversations before they happened. If I knew I was going to a shop, I imagined what I might ask. If I expected a phone call, I practiced how I would introduce myself. If I was meeting someone new, I prepared a few simple questions. I was not trying to predict every sentence. I was simply giving my brain a starting point. That preparation changed my relationship with nervousness. I still felt nervous, but I was no longer empty-handed. My mind had a few familiar roads ready to follow. Then came the day that tested everything. I was speaking with someone in English when the person suddenly asked me a question I had not expected. For a second, my mind became completely silent. The old fear returned. I wanted to escape into my first language. But instead of panicking, I took a breath and used the simplest English I knew. I answered slowly. The other person understood. Then they asked another question. I answered again. The conversation continued. It was not perfect. I paused. I made a grammar mistake. I forgot a word. But I did something far more important than speaking perfectly. I stayed in the conversation. When it ended, I realized that confidence was not the feeling of knowing everything. Confidence was knowing that you could continue even when you did not. From that day, I stopped measuring progress by perfection. I measured it by recovery. Could I continue after a mistake? Could I explain an idea another way? Could I ask someone to repeat a sentence? Could I stay calm when I did not understand? Every successful answer became proof that I was becoming stronger. I also discovered the value of reviewing my day before sleeping. I would remember one sentence I had spoken well, one moment that had been difficult, and one phrase I wanted to improve. Then I would repeat the better version silently. This simple habit turned ordinary experiences into daily lessons. Slowly, my English became connected to my actual life instead of remaining trapped inside study materials. I began to understand something powerful. Fluency was not a sudden transformation. It was the result of hundreds of small decisions to practice, continue, and try again. And there was still one final test waiting ahead, the moment when the English inside my mind would have to become the English coming from my mouth. The moment finally arrived when I had to carry the English inside my mind into a real conversation. I had practiced quietly for weeks, but real people did not follow the scripts I had imagined. They spoke unexpectedly, changed topics, asked follow up questions, and sometimes used expressions I had never heard before. At first, this felt frightening. Then I remembered the most important lesson I had learned. I did not need to control the whole conversation. I only needed to handle the next sentence. So I listened carefully, understood what I could, and responded with the words I had. When I did not understand, I asked the person to repeat the question. When I forgot a word, I explained the idea differently. Instead of seeing these moments as failures, I treated them as opportunities to practice staying calm. Something changed inside me. I realized that speaking English was not an examination where someone was waiting to mark every mistake. It was simply an exchange between two people. This discovery removed a heavy weight from my shoulders. I began speaking more freely because I no longer believed every sentence had to be perfect. The next breakthrough came from learning how to use pauses. Before, whenever I stopped for even 2 seconds, I thought everyone would notice my weakness. Now I understood that a short pause was normal. I could breathe, organize my thought, and continue. Sometimes I silently asked myself, what do I want to say next? Then the words appeared. This tiny mental pause became one of my strongest tools. I also learned that listening was part of speaking. If I only prepared my own answers, I could miss what another person was actually saying. So I began listening for key words and ideas. When someone spoke, I focused on meaning instead of trying to understand every single word. If I heard a useful expression, I repeated it silently in my mind. Later, I tried using it in my own sentences. Listening and thinking began working together. Another powerful habit was changing one sentence into several forms. If I thought, I am going home, I would also think, I need to go home, I will go home soon, or I am on my way home. The meaning remained similar, but my brain practiced different structures. This gave me flexibility. I no longer depended on one memorized sentence. I could create new sentences from familiar patterns. I started doing this with questions too. What are you doing? Became, what are you working on? Where are you going? Became, where are you heading? Little by little, my brain became comfortable moving between expressions. Then I began reviewing conversations after they ended. I would ask myself what went well and what felt difficult. If I had struggled with a sentence, I would find a simpler way to express it and repeat that version. I never used this review to criticize myself. I used it to prepare myself. There was a huge difference. Criticism made me afraid to speak. Reflection made me eager to improve. I also discovered that confidence could grow from tiny victories. One day, I understood a joke without translating it. Another day, I answered a question immediately. On another day, I remembered a phrase at exactly the right moment. Nobody else noticed these moments, but I celebrated them because I knew what they meant. My brain was becoming faster. The road I had been building was becoming wider. Eventually, I noticed that I was no longer translating every basic sentence. English was beginning to appear directly. I could see a cup and think cup. I could feel tired and think I need rest. I could make a plan and describe it in English. These were not dramatic achievements, but together they represented a huge transformation. The language was moving from something I studied into something I used. Still, I knew there was a danger. When people see progress, they sometimes become impatient and want everything immediately. I reminded myself not to destroy a growing habit by demanding instant fluency. Language learning is not a race against another person. Your only real comparison is with who you were yesterday. Some days you will improve quickly, some days you will struggle. Both kinds of days belong to the journey. So I created one simple rule: never finish a day without giving my English brain something. It could be a short conversation, a few minutes of listening, a paragraph of reading, or several sentences inside my mind. The amount could change, but the connection could not disappear. This rule protected my progress. Even during busy days, I could keep the habit alive. Then, another realization appeared. I had spent years believing that English would become easier when I learned enough. Now I understood that English became easier because I used what I already knew. The difference was enormous. I stopped waiting for a larger vocabulary before speaking. I stopped waiting for perfect grammar before participating. I stopped waiting for confidence before taking action. Instead, action became the source of confidence. Every conversation gave me information. Every mistake showed me what to practice. Every successful sentence strengthened my belief. The language was becoming a skill rather than a subject. And once I understood that, I became less afraid of difficult moments. I knew that every challenge could become training. The person who once stayed silent because of fear was slowly becoming someone willing to try. I still had more to learn, but I no longer felt trapped at the beginning. I had discovered a process that could carry me forward. Think in English, practice in English, listen carefully, speak simply, recover from mistakes, and return the next day. That process was changing not only my English, but also the way I saw myself. I was no longer someone hoping to become confident someday. I was becoming confident through every small action I took today. The final lesson was not about learning more words. It was about trusting the words I already had. For a long time, I believed fluency was waiting somewhere in the future, after another course, another vocabulary list, or another perfect grammar lesson. Then I understood that fluency was being created in the present, through every thought I practiced and every sentence I dared to speak. I stopped asking, "When will I become fluent?" and started asking, "What can I practice today?" That question changed everything. My mornings became opportunities. Before getting out of bed, I formed a few English thoughts. I described the room, planned my day, and reminded myself of something positive. During breakfast, I described what I was eating. While traveling, I noticed signs, people, sounds, and places and named them in English. At night, I reviewed the day. None of these activities looked impressive, but together they transformed ordinary time into valuable practice. I also learned to protect my confidence from comparison. Sometimes I watched someone speaking English smoothly and felt far behind. Then I remembered that I was seeing their result, not their journey. I could not compare my beginning with someone else's years of practice. My only useful comparison was with myself. Was I thinking faster than before? Was I understanding more? Was I recovering from mistakes more calmly? Was I speaking when I once would have stayed silent? If the answer was yes, I was moving forward. Another important lesson was accepting slow days. Some mornings, English came easily. On other days, even simple sentences felt difficult. Instead of calling those days failures, I called them training days. I learned that consistency does not mean producing the same amount every day. It means returning after difficult days. Even one sentence could keep the habit alive. I will keep learning. Today, I will try again. Sometimes, those were enough. Then I discovered how powerful encouragement could be. Whenever I successfully understood a sentence or completed a conversation, I stopped for a moment and appreciated it. I did not wait for a huge achievement before feeling proud. Small victories mattered because they proved that effort was working. Confidence grew from evidence, and every small success became another piece of evidence. Eventually, English began to feel less like a subject and more like a second path through my daily life. I could think about plans, feelings, problems, and dreams using English. I could rehearse conversations before they happened. I could listen, pause, respond, and continue, even when the conversation became difficult. Most importantly, I no longer believed that mistakes meant I was bad at English. Mistakes showed me where the next lesson was waiting. If I used the wrong tense, I could practice it. If I forgot a word, I could learn it. If I misunderstood someone, I could listen again. Every problem became information instead of a reason to quit. And this is the message I want you to remember. Your brain is not your enemy. It is your training partner. Every time you think in English, you are creating a connection. Every time you repeat a sentence, you strengthen it. Every time you speak despite fear, you teach your mind that English is safe. Every time you recover from a mistake, you become more resilient. You do not need to transform overnight. You need to build a habit that survives tomorrow. Your progress may feel invisible at first, but invisible does not mean non-existent. Roots grow before trees appear. One day, you will find yourself in a conversation and realize that you answered before translating. You will understand a phrase immediately. You will make a mistake and continue instead of panicking. You will hear your own voice speaking English with greater confidence. When that happens, remember that the moment did not begin that day. It began with every quiet thought you practiced when nobody was watching. Your future English speaker is being built by what you do now. So do not wait for perfect conditions. Do not wait until your vocabulary is enormous. Do not wait until fear disappears. Start while you are nervous. Start with simple words. Start with the English you already know. Let your mind become your first practice room, your daily classroom, and your place to grow. Then take that practice into real conversations, one brave sentence at a time. Your journey will have difficult moments, but difficult does not mean impossible. Keep listening, keep thinking, keep repeating, keep speaking, keep returning. The day may come when English feels natural, and when it does, you will know something beautiful. You did not suddenly become a different person. You simply kept teaching the person you already were how to express more of yourself. That is the real power of thinking in English.